Have you ever had your entire life savings locked away? Not because you did anything wrong, but because of a bank's mistake? Imagine calling for help day after day, only to be met with smug voices, thinly veiled insults, and the sickening realization that they could ruin you, simply because they felt like it. That's what happened to me. But when you push a man into a corner, don't be surprised when he finds a way to push back harder. If you've ever felt powerless against a company that thought they could treat you like dirt, you're going to want to hear this story until the very last word. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because sometimes the only way to fight injustice is with a little bit of creative revenge. The nightmare started on what should have been an ordinary Saturday morning. I remember the chill in the air, the way my fingers tightened around my card as I slid it into the ATM slot. The machine blinked, word, then spat out a cold rejection, transaction denied. Confused, I tried again. Same result. My heart sank. Inside the branch, fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I stepped up to the counter. A young clerk with too bright lipstick barely looked at me when I explained the situation. She sighed like I'd ruined her day by existing. "Oh, that happens sometimes. Here, use this code." She scribbled down a number, explained it would let me withdraw cash directly. Apparently, it was just a feature of their system, nothing out of the ordinary. And for a moment, I believed her. I trusted her. But that trust was the last mistake I would make with that bank. A few days later, I noticed something strange. My online banking wouldn't load my balance. Transfers weren't working. When I called support, I was told my account had been flagged for review. Flagged. I repeated, trying to keep my voice calm. What does that even mean? I haven't done anything wrong. The representative on the other end gave me a dismissive laugh, the kind that makes your blood simmer. Sometimes the system catches discrepancies. It happens. Just wait a bit. A bit? That bit turned into weeks. Weeks of locked funds. Weeks of watching bills pile up while my own money was caged behind their walls. And the worst part, every time I called, the tone was the same, smug, clipped, irritated. Once, I could swear I heard the sneer in his voice when he said, "Maybe if you had a more common last name, this wouldn't have happened." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My last name, foreign sounding, yes. But my money was as real as anyone else's. And they thought they could mock me for it. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, imagining faceless clerks counting my money while laughing about the foreigner. My fists clenched in the dark. My jaw ached from grinding my teeth. All the while, I felt the weight of powerlessness crushing me. I wasn't overdrawn. I hadn't broken a single rule. This was their mistake, their error, and still they punished me for it. But this was only the beginning. What they didn't realize was that humiliation has a way of hardening into something far more dangerous. Resolve. The days turned into weeks, and each morning started the same way. I'd open my banking app, staring at the frozen screen like a gambler watching a rigged slot machine. No matter how many times I refreshed, the numbers stayed locked. My money, untouchable. I can't describe the sinking feeling that came every time I needed to pay a bill or buy groceries. My stomach twisted as I dug into my emergency savings, knowing it was only a matter of time before that ran dry. Each transaction felt like scraping the bottom of a barrel. But worse than the financial stress was the humiliation. Every call to the bank was like being dragged through glass. I'd dial the number, force my voice into politeness, and wait for the inevitable sigh on the other end. Credit union support, how can I help you? Hi, this is regarding my account being flagged. It's been 2 weeks now, Anne. Oh, you again, one rep muttered once, not even hiding his annoyance. Like I told you last time, sir, you'll just have to wait until the review is complete. My blood boiled. You've locked all my funds. I can't access a dime. How am I supposed to? He cut me off, his tone sharp. Sir, raising your voice won't make this go faster. Maybe if you didn't use unusual withdrawal methods, this wouldn't have happened. Unusual? He meant the code their own clerk gave me. I wanted to scream. And then came the jab that cut deeper than any financial blow. Well, he said with a chuckle, maybe the system just doesn't trust names like yours. You know how it is. I froze, phone pressed to my ear, every muscle in my body tight. My last name. My family's name. The name I carry with pride, reduced to a joke for some smug stranger hiding behind a headset. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, anger gnawing at me from the inside. My jaw ached from grinding my teeth. My mind replayed the conversation on a loop, the sound of his laughter scratching at my sanity. It wasn't just incompetence anymore. It was disrespect. Personal. I tried every official channel. Emails. In-branch visits. Complaints filed through the website. Each time, the answer was the same. We're still reviewing your account. Reviewing what? They never explained. They never apologized. They just stonewalled me, as if I were some nuisance rather than a paying customer. At one point, I sat across from a branch manager, her desk cluttered with family photos and a tiny cactus. She smiled that corporate smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "I understand this is frustrating," she said, hands folded neatly. "No," I snapped, my patience cracking. "Frustrating is when your internet cuts out for an hour. This is theft. You've locked thousands of dollars of my hard-earned money. I've done nothing wrong. How do you justify this?" Her smile didn't waver. "Sometimes the system errs on the side of caution. It's for your protection. For my protection." The words made me want to flip the desk. My money held hostage, my bills piling up, my dignity shredded, and they called it protection. Walking out of that branch, I felt a hollowness settle in my chest. A mix of rage and despair. The kind that makes you realize just how powerless you are when an institution decides it can crush you under its heel. But then something shifted. During a late-night call with my family back home, I vented, spilling every detail, my voice thick with exhaustion. My younger cousin, barely in his 20s, listened quietly before asking a simple question. "Why do you keep playing fair with them?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're trying emails, calls, meetings. They don't care. If they won't listen, make them listen. Embarrass them." I laughed bitterly. "What am I supposed to do? Stand outside the branch with a sign?" He chuckled. "Not exactly. There are services. Online. Cheap ones. You give them a few bucks, they flood social media with complaints. Realistic ones. Hundreds of them. Banks care more about their image than their customers." At first, I thought he was joking. But the more I sat with the idea, the more it made sense. I pictured the smug clerk, the chuckling call rep, the cactus-loving manager. All of them so sure they held the power. Maybe it was time to remind them that reputations, once cracked, shatter quickly. And as that thought settled into my bones, I felt the first spark of control return. They thought I was powerless. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The seed was planted. My cousin's idea echoed in my mind for days. "Why do you keep playing fair with them?" It was true. I had been fighting this battle by their rules. Rules designed to protect them, not me. I was knocking on their doors, begging for scraps of attention, while they laughed behind closed curtains. But now, a different thought pulsed through me. What if I stopped begging and started attacking? The thought was intoxicating, but also terrifying. I wasn't the kind of person who stirred up chaos online. My digital footprint was careful, my reputation clean. Could I really go through with something like this? Then I remembered that phone call. The smirk in that rep's voice when he mocked my last name. The sterile, dismissive look in the branch manager's eyes as she told me locking my money was for my protection. The way my card was declined in public, forcing me to stand there red-faced while the cashier waited. Each memory stoked the fire. I opened my laptop late that night, room lit only by the cold glow of the screen. My cousin had sent me a link. At first, I thought it was some scammy-looking site full of Cyrillic text and cluttered graphics. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized this was real. It was a service, almost absurdly simple. You typed what you wanted people to post. You picked how many times. And you paid pennies. For 1 Russian ruble, about a cent, they'd have a stranger, using a profile that looked frighteningly authentic, post whatever you asked. Complaints, reviews, comments. Anything. There were even categories. American-looking profiles with smiling family pictures. Middle-aged moms who seemed obsessed with baking. College kids with casual slang. All fake. All tools. I stared at the order form, heart pounding. What should I write? It had to be sharp, believable, the kind of complaint that made a company squirm. Too fake, and they'd ignore it. Too soft, and it wouldn't sting. So I began drafting. Been waiting 3 weeks for access to my own money. Customer service is rude and dismissive. How can you treat loyal members like this? Delete. Rewrite. Worst banking experience of my life. They lock your funds without explanation, then insult you when you ask for help. Beware. Better. I wrote a handful of variations, different tones, different details, imagining them scattered across the credit union's Facebook, their Twitter, their Instagram. each one a little dagger in their carefully polished public image. And then came the decision. How much? For the price of a coffee, I could unleash hundreds of complaints. Hundreds of angry voices, all shouting at once. The thought sent a shiver through me. I hovered over the button. A rush of adrenaline surged through my veins. This was it, the point of no return. Click. The payment processed. My balance shrank by $3. And just like that, the order was live. The waiting was unbearable. I refreshed the credit union's Facebook page every 5 minutes, pulse racing. At first, nothing. A few normal posts about savings accounts and loan offers. Then bam, a comment under their latest post. Still waiting for my account to be unlocked. This place is a joke. Another minutes later. Customer service here is the worst. Rude staff, zero accountability. And then, like rain turning into a downpour, the flood began. Dozens of complaints, pouring in from names I didn't recognize, but faces that looked so real. A mom with 3 kids blasting them for stealing her money. A college student furious about hidden fees. A middle-aged man ranting about being treated like trash. Within hours, their social media was drowning. Every post they'd made in the past month was now buried under a tidal wave of negativity. And the best part, I didn't have to lift a finger. I leaned back in my chair, a grin spreading across my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt since this nightmare began, power. They had silenced me, dismissed me, mocked me. But now their reputation was on fire, and they had no idea where the flames were coming from. I almost felt sorry for the poor social media in turn tasked with sorting through the chaos. Almost. Because this wasn't just noise. This was a message. You can lock my money. You can insult my name. But if you think I'll just sit quietly and take it, you're dead wrong. And as I watched the complaints pile higher and higher, I knew it was only a matter of time before the bank realized the storm wasn't going away. They wanted to ignore me. Soon, they'd have no choice but to beg me to stop. When the manager personally called me to apologize and even offered $50 compensation, I thought the story was over. But the real twist came afterward. The Russian service my cousin had used didn't stop. The bots and fake reviewers kept flooding their pages nonstop. Day after day, new one-star reviews popped up. Scammers, fraud, don't trust this bank. The credit union's online reputation collapsed overnight. People began openly calling them out on Facebook and Twitter. Even real customers, who had quietly suffered before, joined the wave and started piling on their own complaints. Within a week, their rating plummeted from 4.5 to 2.1. New customers avoided them completely. The bank had to release a public statement claiming they were the victim of false reviews. But by then, their credibility was already shattered. And the most satisfying part? That same clerk who mocked me for having a foreign-sounding name. Her name appeared in a screenshot attached to one of the viral complaints. Local community groups started dragging her. Soon after, she was quietly reassigned to some back-office role, far away from customers. The bank thought they could silence one customer. They had no idea that a small act of revenge would unravel their entire image. By the end of the month, the damage was undeniable. The credit union's customer base had shrunk, their social media pages looked like war zones, and their once family-friendly image was ruined beyond repair. For me, the money was never really the issue. Sure, I wanted access to my funds, but what truly lit the fire was the way they treated me. With arrogance, with disrespect, and with prejudice over my last name. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to sue. I didn't even need to waste hours arguing with their useless support line. With just $3 and a little creativity, I showed them the cost of humiliating the wrong customer. In the end, I walked away with my money, an apology, and the satisfaction of knowing they would think twice before pulling the same stunt on anyone else. And if there's one lesson here, it's this. Never underestimate the power of a small, well-placed revenge. Sometimes, the smallest move leaves the biggest scar.